Hey, welcome back to another episode with Lattice Training. Today we're going to look at front levers and how to press them. In this episode we're going to go through 4 different sessions. So we're looking at 4 progressions of lever lift exercises. So we're going to go from a nice easy level all the way to level 4, which is going to be pretty hard, and for those people that are pretty much hitting front levers and want to progress them. Work your way through this, and when you can complete each of these sessions nice and easy, you can move on to the next one and try and train that one up until you're ready for the final one and the final exam of can you do a front lever. So a couple of safety things just before we get started. If you've got any lower back pain at all, then this is not an exercise for you. So this is going to be really intense on your core and around your shoulder girdle and also your lower back. So if you've got any worries, then please don't do any of these exercises for now. It's also really important to make sure that you warm up properly. It's really easy to pull the muscles around your shoulders if you're not warmed up. So please take it seriously and try and make sure that you're really ready to pull hard before any of these sessions or exercises involved. So the first exercise in our progression 1. This is quite a hard exercise, and this is why we're doing it at the start of the session. And it's something that you must be able to do if you're working towards this type of training. And it's something that I find really important in terms of increasing your core strength, but also the strength around your shoulder girdle to hold an engaged position. It's a hanging L-sit. So a couple of key things to remember in this workout or this exercise is to keep the shoulders nice and depressed, so bringing your scapula back and downwards, and also trying to keep your neck nice and high and your head looking forward. You're going to lift into a straight leg position. You can have a slight bend at the knees if it's more comfortable for your legs, and you're going to hold that for around 5 seconds. We're going to do 4 sets of this, resting around 2 minutes between the sets. And as you progress throughout the weeks, you're going to increase that rep time from 5 to 10, 15, 20 seconds. Before moving on to the second progression of these entire workouts, where you're going to be doing slightly different exercises, you must be able to hold 4 sets of 20-second holds. And that's a really important thing if you want to build the strength up slowly over time to be able to complete a really strong and stable front lever. So what you'll often find with this is if you're struggling for strength around the shoulder girdle, you might find that your shoulders want to creep up. So it's a really good workout to make sure that before that happens, you put your feet down and you stop and make sure you're resting. You'll also find that your quads start to feel a little bit cramped up. If that's happening, it's because your hamstrings are relatively tight and you're working really hard to keep them up in a straight position. Bend the knees slightly to try and reduce that effect, but it's really good to try and work towards a nice straight position. Also, it's quite a good exercise to try and do some forward bending stretches before doing this exercise. So the second exercise in this first progression is going to be using a really simple hollow body hold, which is a core movement. The reason why we're trying to focus on this in the earlier progressions is to make sure you can hold a really stable posture when you lift into a front lever later on. You'll see more of the other workouts focusing around the shoulder girdle and the lats, but in this first progression, we're going to make sure you've got a nice strong core. So hollow body hold, we're going to be holding it to begin with for 10 seconds. We're doing 4 sets. As you progress throughout the weeks, rather than the progressions, you're going to build on the time. So go from 10 seconds to 20 to 30. When you're ready to move on to the next progression, you should be hitting at least 4 sets of 30 seconds. So you'll see in the hollow body hold, I'm holding a nice straight position, just with my shoulders and my body off the ground. If you want to make it easier, you can bring your hands above your head. And you can also bring your legs in. Slowly increase the distance to make it harder. So the third exercise in progression 1 is going to be doing a lat pullover. A lat pullover is a really good exercise to start building the strength and the motion that you'll do moving into a front lever. So effectively, relatively straight arms from above the head to in front of the body. Obviously on a bar, we're going to be lifting the body upwards, but a lat pullover works the same muscles and the same movement, but using the arms moving instead of the body. You can do this on the floor or on a bench, sort of that you might see on a bench press, and you can either use a barbell, so one bar, or dumbbells, which I'll be using this in an example. What we need to focus on is keeping your lower back against the floor, so nice tight abs. In this version, we're going to keep our legs bent and feet on the floor, and we're going to use the dumbbells from above the head, close to the ground, all the way to above the body. 4 sets, and we're going to go for 4 repetitions of this because we're working the strength element, and we're going to try and rest 2 to 3 minutes between the sets. Rather than increasing the reps, it's really good on this exercise to increase the weight and making sure we're going to quite maximal. But once again, lower back on the floor, abs engaged. So that's a really good movement to start building into this lever lift motion. And if you struggle to create body tension whilst you're climbing on steep terrain, this is a really, really good exercise to start increasing your strength in that specific movement pattern. So the second progression of this workout, this is when we're starting to see that you can make movement around the shoulder girdle on a hanging from a bar. This is when we're starting to really build into that lever lift motion. So make sure that you've got that progression 1 done nice and well, and you feel comfortable with all the exercises because we're ramping up the intensity and this one's going to be a bit harder. So exercise 1 is going to be front lever tucks. So you really need to make sure that you're able to do this first motion before you move on to this progression. A front lever tuck is effectively lifting into a front lever with bent legs. So you're reducing that lever arm, you're having both legs bent towards the chest, and you're going to try and hold that position for 1 to 3 to 5 seconds as the weeks progress. We're doing 4 sets of the exercise, resting around 2 to 3 minutes between the sets. So front lever tucks, here's the example. So with front lever tucks, to make the exercise a little bit harder and progress it towards the next progression where we're going to do one leg bent, is if both legs are bent as close as possible to the chest, so your knees almost touching the bar, that's going to make it a bit easier. If you want to make it harder, both knees are going to be moving slowly and slowly further out. But when you do this, make sure you keep a nice straight back, and your shins should be parallel to the ceiling and the floor. So making sure that they're not going up or down. Keeping nice straight legs, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. And once you reach this level, that's when you completed the exercise perfectly. So the second exercise of this progression, we're going to look at simple leg raises, but this time we're going to go toes to bar. So rather than stopping at halfway in the L sit, we're going to try and get our toes all the way to the bar. The reason why this is important is going to halfway, most of the time our hips and body are still staying straight and our shoulders aren't doing anything different. As we lift our toes to the bar, we're going to create rotation around the shoulder girdle, and we're going to start moving towards what we've just done in that front lever position. So toes to the bar, leg raises. We're going to go for just 4 reps on this. 4 sets once again, resting 2 to 3 minutes per set. If you want to make it a little bit easier, you can start tucking the legs. So there's a little bit bend in the legs. Also, if you find your hamstrings are quite tight, it's also good to bend the legs slightly. If you want to progress this exercise, you can either increase the reps, building up towards 10 as a maximum, but that is quite hard, or you can add ankle weights. Once again, makes it quite a lot harder. But try and stick with those 4 sets and the same rest period, because we're trying to build the strength around the shoulder girdle and core, ready for the full front lever and progression 4. The third exercise in this progression is going to be the same lat pullover with a slight variation to what we've seen in progression 1. We're going to be doing the same exercise, but this time lifting the legs up and holding a hollow body hold at the same time. We're working the same area around the shoulder girdle, and you can start increasing the weight. 4 sets, 4 reps, resting 2 to 3 minutes per set. So progression 3, we're going to look at using similar style of exercises and trying to progress them a little bit further, and this time we're really going to target a lot of the workout on the bar itself. Exercise 1, we're going to look for one leg bent lever holds. So you can make this a little bit easier and harder depending on how much you bend your leg, but this is the first step to really holding that extended position on the bar itself. We're looking at 4 sets of each hold. And once again, like we've done previously, and like we'll do in the 4th and final progression, we're going to hold it for 1 second per set, then build up over the weeks for 3 and 5 seconds per set, just making sure that you're making really good form. Once you can hold this exercise nice and comfortably, you can start extending that leg, and then once you're ready to progress to the final workout, that's when you can start extending the leg to full. So 1 leg bent, lever holds. So on the 1 leg holds, like I said before, to make it easier, you're going to try and bend your knee really high towards your chest so there's less leverage, and if you want to make it harder, you're going to move that slowly downwards. One thing to make sure with all of the levers, like you're doing the full lever and this 1 leg one, is making sure that your body is nice and straight. It's really easy to start sticking your bum out, and that's when you're going to have bad form, and it can actually strain your back a little bit. So don't arch the hips upwards. Don't stick the bum outwards. Try and keep a nice straight body throughout the whole hold. So the second exercise in this 3rd progression is looking at a couple of different exercises built into one. So it's going to be a leg raise to begin with, so toes to bar. We're going to do an upside down deadlift, so pushing our feet towards the ceiling, extending at the body, and lowering down nice and slowly through the front lever in a negative movement. So we're going towards the ground nice and slowly, eccentrically lowering. This is really, really intense. So once again, we're going to try and do 4 repetitions and 4 sets. But if you find that a little bit hard to begin with and do it with good form, start by doing 2 repetitions, then 3, then 4, as you progress throughout the weeks. You need to have around 2 to 3 minutes rest, like in the other exercises, because this is strength training. So make sure that you're feeling fresh before the next set begins. Okay, let's go for it. Like I said, this is a really hard workout and hard exercise. So you might start to find that you're lowering really quickly by the 4th repetition, like you might have seen just then. So if you find that quite hard, try and do 2 reps to begin with, then 3, then 4, because you need to go nice and slow to get the right training stimulus. So the 3rd and final exercise of progression 3 is really simple, wide arm pull-ups. This might seem like quite a weird one to add in there, but wide arm pull-ups really involves the lats and your upper back muscles. And this is a really important part of doing a lever. A lot of people think it's really core intensive, which it is, but there's a lot involved around the shoulder girdle using these bigger muscle groups throughout that rotation. So I find wide arm pull-ups is a really good way of building the strength around the shoulder. So we're going to do 4 sets of 4 repetitions, and you're going to rest once again for 2 to 3 minutes between the sets. And if you want to make this harder, start adding on weight. So nice and wide arms, really slowly, good control, wide arm pull-ups. Like I said, if you want to make it harder, add weight, but this is a really good way to build up the strength around the shoulder girdle. Because we've already done the leg raises earlier, we've worked our core out and we've had those front lever holds with a bent leg. So this is a really good progression, and make sure you can do it well before moving on to the next one. So progression 4, the fourth and final version of these workouts. This is going to be the hardest one, and one that you can continually progress until you're at the point where you're really happy with your front levers. It's really hard, but the 3 exercises involved are going to make sure that you're doing this with perfect form and you can really progress to holding front levers for as long as you possibly want to. Exercise 1 of progression 4 is holding front levers, and this might seem like the final exam, but we're going to try and progress the time as you do this session more and more. So we're going to do 4 sets of this workout or this exercise as we've done in the previous workouts, and what we're going to try and do is lift into a full straight lever and hold it for 1 second in the first time you're completing this. As you start to progress over the weeks, you're going to hold it for 3 seconds, then 5 seconds, but once again you're trying to progress really nice and slowly for all 4 sets. So let's go for a front lever. Trying to keep a nice straight body. Once again, we're having our hands just a bit wider than shoulder width, lifting up with a straight body, trying to keep nice tense glutes, holding that position for a couple of seconds, and we're going to do 4 sets of that with around 2 minutes rest between sets. Complete 4 sets, and then the next week increase the time of each rep. So after you've completed exercise 1, you should start to feel a little bit fatigued, and you might not be able to hold each of those levers for as long as you want. But once again, we're building up nice and slowly week after week, so 1 second is fine to begin with, and try and increase it nice and slowly. The second exercise is just doing lever lifts. So we're going to go into that same position, but this time we're going to do repetitions of that lifting aspect, and we're not looking to hold the position. We're going to do 4 lifts per set, so 4 reps, and we're going to do 4 sets total as well. Resting around 2 to 3 minutes between sets, and this intensity should be really hard, so you're going to start to fatigue, but try and make sure that you keep a nice straight body. If you find it hard to do 4 reps, start off with 2 reps per set and build up over the weeks once again. This progression is going to last you quite a long time, so try and be conservative to begin with and build up over time. Cool, so lever lifts, 4 reps, 4 sets ideally, and let's go for it. So as you can see there, this is luckily short enough for me to touch the ground, and it stops any of that momentum between each of the times I lift up. It's really useful to be on a higher bar, but if you are on there, try and make sure that you lift down or lower down really slowly, stop at the bottom and re-lift up. What you want to avoid doing is swinging on each repetition. As you can see, it's quite hard. 2 to 3 minutes rest and 4 sets total. Third and final exercise of this 4th progression is nice and simple, leg raises, toes touching the bar. It's really easy to forget the core when we're trying to focus on front levers once you're at the level of being able to lift up. But it's really good just to add in this exercise to the end of the workout. So we're going to go for leg raises, toes touching the bar, great form, really slowly. And if you want to make this harder, add ankle weights. We're going to go for 4 sets. We're going to go for 10 repetitions per set. We're going to have 2 minutes rest per set. So it seems quite easy compared to the other ones, but trust me, 10 repetitions, 4 sets, it starts to add up. So hopefully there you've got a toolkit on how to progress towards doing a front lever. Once again, it's nice and simple, and there's only 3 exercises per progression, and we've got 4 progressions there. It's really, really important that you actually take your time and perfect each of those progressions and make sure you build up slowly. A lot of people that I find tend to try and jump too quickly to the harder progressions because they feel like they're able to do it and they might achieve their goal faster. This often leads to demotivation and a slight lack of feeling of progression because they've jumped up too quickly and they stagnate later on. So try and plan out your weeks or months and make sure that you take it nice and slowly. If you could do a front lever in a year's time, I'm sure you'd be really, really happy. So try and plan it over a realistic timescale and build up slowly. If you're trying to do one of these progressions per month, that's great if you've got a good base to work on. But once again, if you progress too quickly, you might end up stopping the training completely. So enjoy, and I hope you can do front levers soon.